In today's episode, my guest is Anwar. He runs a successful coaching business where he helps busy entrepreneurs to get in the best shape of their life. So we dive really deep into subjects that he's an expert in, such as peak performance, fitness, and he shares a lot of specific tips and strategies how to just be in the best shape of your life, how to get the best work done, how to look great. We talk also about building your personal brand and audience because he's absolutely killing it on Twitter. So he shares a lot about how he does that, and we talk quite a bit about that. And we talk also about his coaching business, how he started it and how he's now running it, and just the whole story around his business. So if those are some subjects that you're interested in, I think you're going to love this episode. And if you do like it, please leave a review on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube, wherever it is that you're listening to this. It really helps to get the word out, and it helps me to do more cool stuff with the podcast. So thanks for that. All right, Oliver, welcome to the Founders Lounge.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. I came across you on Twitter, as I do for most of the guests. But one thing that's unique about you is, so I have this habit that whenever I find something interesting on Twitter and I just want to remember it, or I want to do something with it, I take a screenshot of it on my phone, and then I have loads of screenshots. And I'm pretty sure that your account is now the most screenshotted account on my phone.
I hope that's a good thing.
I think that's a good thing, yeah. I still need to figure out what exactly I'm going to be doing with all those screenshots, but it's just stuff. Usually I then review them towards the end of the week and kind of systemize it or whatever. But the point is, you share a lot of cool stuff on Twitter, and I think you have a lot of really cool knowledge, and I'd love to talk about all of that. But maybe just for the intro, for everyone who doesn't know who you are, what's your elevator pitch? Who are you?
Sure. So my name's Oliver Anwar, and I am a coach to high performers and entrepreneurs. So I've been doing that for the past 6 years, helping people get healthier, look great, feel great, and generally be great. And that's a motto that I kind of have. And the whole focus really is on transformation, not just with kind of your body, but with your overall health, right? Ensuring that you're getting enough sleep, ensuring that you're productive each day. You know, you've got the right mindset for success in both life and business, and taking you from a place where you kind of feel maybe you're tired, you're unproductive, you don't feel great about yourself, to somewhere where you're kind of lean, you're high performing, you've got energy, and you've got vitality for life. And these are all the things that I believe in and believe that will make you excel. So I went through my own journey through health and fitness. I was a quite good football player when I was younger in the UK, played elite level football, didn't make it as a professional, and then I moved on into college, where I became a very skinny and self-conscious, insecure guy that was around a lot of big rugby players. So I decided to hit the gym, made tons of mistakes, injured myself, hurt myself, had really bad dieting habits and things like that. I then started to learn a bit more about the research, the science behind things, and began to build up my health and my body. Got tons of inquiries from people I knew and people online as I started to build an audience about how to get fit, like getting in shape for holiday and this kind of stuff. Started working with tons of kind of like general population people and things like that. Went into the corporate world, had a corporate job alongside running the business, started training a lot of the corporate guys that I was working with and things like that, moved on to kind of senior executives and things like that. And then now I kind of work specifically with entrepreneurs, guys, founders running businesses, and also high performers, execs that have not got much time, but really want to make a change to their health. I come from a English and Indonesian background. So my dad's from Indonesia, Bali. My mum's English, which is cool. So I've done a lot of traveling. I like to travel. It's one of my passions. I'm living in Barcelona right now, which is one of the lovely places in Europe. So I'm very much just enthusiastic about developing lots of areas to life, right? Both health, wealth, good relationships, and just enjoying this ride that we have, man. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Today's episode is sponsored by freelancer.com, the largest online marketplace for freelancing and crowdsourcing. If you want to delegate some of your work or need to hire an expert in virtually any skill, then this is the place for you. There are over 60 million freelancers, so you can find anything you want. I'm currently using it to get some cool new stuff done for the podcast. Even NASA has been using it for years, which is pretty cool. If you want to give it a try, go to freelancer.tflpod.co and you'll get a £30 voucher to get started with your first project. So that's freelancer.tflpod.co. I'll put the link in the description. That is an awesome intro. Nice.
Thanks.
There's a few things that I think we're going to talk about. And I think you're really good at audience building. I think you're crazy good at audience building and putting out content that just great content. So I definitely want to talk about that, as well as obviously performance and both mental and fitness and just your business, right? Because I think that's interesting as well. Where should we start? So maybe let's start with the business side of things, right? Because then I think we're gonna get into other subjects later. So you are you said a coach to high performance, and you kind of focus on how did you get into this niche where you're at right now? Because I guess when I worked with a personal trainer at my gym, I think it was a very different experience from what you're actually doing, and I'm not super sure about, how you work and what's your product, but it was, how should I say, it was just a regular fitness trainer that you find in your local gym, right? And
Yep.
I paid, I think, £500 for 10 sessions, which I'm assuming that your pricing is very different. And I think what you're doing is really smart because you position yourself, you specialize yourself in a specific target audience, which allows you to probably run a much more successful coaching and training business. So can you talk a little bit more about that? I think it was kind of a weird generic question, but
Yeah, for sure. I can dive into that. So I guess the difference between being a personal trainer in the gym and working online is, as a personal trainer, you're working with the specific demographic in a geographical location, right? So if you're in central London, you're only working with people that are working in central London, right? They could be bankers, they could be certain types of people, they could have a different array of jobs. But if they go to that gym, you as a trainer are going to be working with the people that go into that gym because they're your only potential customers. When you're online, right, the internet is full of billions of people. So you really need to be specific with who you want to target when you're doing some kind of online training, right? And this was a mistake that I made initially. So I was working with kind of everybody, right? I was like, everybody that wants to give me money, I'll train you, okay? And that kind of thing. And you think that you're going to do well doing that, but really you're doing the opposite because what you want is your marketing message to speak to a specific demographic of people, right? So mums that are 40 that want to lose a little bit of weight, the language and the pain points are going to be completely different from an entrepreneur, right, who's working 70 hours a week that wants to be a little bit less stressed. Okay, so you're marketing yourself as you want to market to the niche that you want to target. Then from there, the product and the service you deliver is going to be specific to that niche. So for entrepreneurs, a big thing is sleep, right? So one of the things that we include and we focus on a lot in our coaching is sleep, because if an entrepreneur is underslept, he can lose tons of productivity. It's terrible for their health. And this has a negative impact on business, right? You're literally losing revenue and profits when you don't sleep properly. Now, sleep is very important to them because it means money. But for somebody else, right, some guys that maybe want to go on holiday and get a little bit lean and they don't care too much, the focus on sleep's not going to be there. So what it allows me to do is, number one, market to that specific demographic really well through my pain points, through my copywriting, my call to actions and things like that. But secondly, I get very good at working with a specific demographic of people, and then my program can be tailored towards those people. And then they kind of get the outcome that they desire, because different people will have a different outcome for what they want from a health program, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah. How was that transition for you from being a more general kind of fitness trainer towards the kind of coach that you are now? Because I think a lot of people, especially in the beginning, they kind of struggle. They're like, yeah, but I don't know if I know enough about that specific target audience. I don't know if I'm good enough to train that kind of clientele. How's that for you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So for me, I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur once I started running my business. So I said to myself, right, what am I like as an entrepreneur? I want to train those people because I understand what it's like to work 70-hour weeks. I understand what it's like to have lots of stress, right? I understand that I probably won't work a 9 to 5. So I straight away understood kind of the pain points that I had, and I knew that then I could relate to other entrepreneurs, right? Because they were going through the same thing. So the transition for me was very easy because it was kind of like, right, I'm kind of coaching myself in a sense, right? And the life that I'm having, to find that. But if that's not you, then I would just say you really need to dig deep into who your target customer is and really what those pain points are for them, because yeah, the transition for me was easy because it was kind of who I was, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Okay, let's talk about content a little bit. I think, as I obviously made it quite clear in the beginning, I think you're exceptionally good at that. Is that...
Thank you.
Let me give a few examples. I actually wrote down a few examples because I think it's... I think it kind of... If I give a few examples of your tweets, I think that's going to kind of paint the picture of what kind of stuff you post. Nothing too controversial. So,
Sure.
Because I think you're good at those as well, which is important. Which it creates results on Twitter, obviously. But for example, some really catchy things like, for example, the best energy drink is 3 liters of water, 8 hours of sleep, and 45 minutes of intense exercise per day. It's just like that cool reminder. It's like, yeah, okay, I need to hear that from time to time just to remind me that that's a healthy lifestyle, right? Yeah. Then there's another one. Don't miss 2 workouts in a row. Don't eat 2 unhealthy meals in a row. Don't have 2 bad nights sleep in a row. Chase consistency, not perfection. Again, just that kind of nudge reminder, it's like, yeah, okay, I need to hear that. Then you got some threads, obviously, 15 health hacks that will make you fitter, leaner, and stronger. So just every tweet that you make, or most of the tweets that you make, they're really catchy and value-packed and stuff that I want to hear, right?
Thank you.
It's kind of like, I want to follow you because I need to hear that, a few times per week. It's like, yeah, okay, that's what healthy lifestyle means and high-performance lifestyle means, and I just need those reminders. Does this just come naturally to you? How do you approach content creation and kind of audience building?
Yeah, it's a great question. So firstly, I would probably say that I'm definitely an expert in the subject of health and fitness. So I've been training for nearly 11 years. So I've read a lot of studies. I've done a lot of training myself. I've trained a lot of clients. So I have a big bank of general knowledge that I know about health and fitness. So having the content ideas is really easy for me because I can just tweet about them, but wording them in a way that is very easy to read. I guess that, I've had copywriting coaches before. I've had people that are, taught me how to write, but to break it down most simply, it's how do we kind of make a tweet as simple as possible for somebody to understand, right? And I like to use analogies. So like the best energy drink, right, is the best energy drink is like 3 liters of water, 8 hours of sleep, or whatever it is. It's kind of like using a comparison there between two things, and people understand that because, like you said, they're like, oh, I'm feeling low energy, I want to go grab that Red Bull. Oh, really, all I need is to sleep better, drink some water and exercise, or whatever the tweet was, right? And it's like that simple comparison, like it hits a chord with people. Same as the idea of like not missing the 2 workouts in a row. It's kind of setting that reminder to people to do something, but the fact that they don't have to be perfect about it also resonates too, because they understand that they're human and they're not going to be perfect all of the time, right? So it's having an understanding of people, but then it's also just writing things in a simple way for people to understand. So with the content creation, I'd really try and focus on those 2 things, especially on Twitter as well. Things that work really well are like the lists and things like that. So you can write a list of things to follow or do. People love those sort of things. And to really like take a certain stance on one sort of thing, right? So the fact that I'm very focused on health and I'm very focused on, the right habits and things like that, I really like put my fork in the ground and say, I believe in this. So all of my tweets resonate this healthy lifestyle that's quite motivating to people, right? I don't kind of and ah about certain things. And there's always nuance in life, but to be successful on Twitter, you really need to say something and really say it with purpose and mean it and really stick your fork in the ground and really take a side. When you do that, your audience is really going to start to grow and people will start to believe in what you believe in as well.
So you got now, I think, around 60,000 or so followers on Twitter, right?
That's right, yeah.
When do you start building audience?
So I started building an audience about 2-3 years ago.
Okay, I mean, that's pretty good. I think that's extremely good. A lot of people don't. Especially, I think Americans are generally better at this. Maybe because, we often see Americans as a little bit more, louder and better at selling and especially better at selling themselves, right? Europeans, and we tend to be more, a little bit quieter. And I struggle to find very good UK or European in general Twitter accounts. When I say very good, well, just the kind of accounts that you have, where you're just sharing a lot. obviously at the end of the day, it's for the purpose of selling your brand, right? And building your business. But yeah, where was I going with this? Do most of your clients come from your content?
Yeah, so all of my clients come through my organic content, which is great. So the way I kind of started it out, the strategy was always to be very niche. So to tweet about fitness, nutrition, fat loss, and just give tons and tons of value. As a smaller account, that's really good because people will see you and they'll be like, okay, cool. I don't know too much about this guy. He hasn't got many followers, but he tweets so much valuable information about this specific subject. So people started to follow me for health, nutrition, and things like that. Then as I started to grow a little bit, I started to connect with the bigger accounts. They would maybe agree with some of the tweets I had or saw value in it. They would retweet it, follow me back, right? And once you have a few big accounts liking and following you then see the benefit of that because when they like a tweet, their audience will see that they've liked your tweet, right? And you start to pop up on the timeline a bit more. Then once you get to like 20, 30,000, a little bit bigger, you can start broadening what you talk about because people are not just buying into fitness, nutrition content, they're buying into Oliver Anwar now, right? So they follow me because they like Oliver Anwar. So I start tweeting about my travels, okay? I start tweeting about, what I think about certain political things. I talk about dresses, right? You saw I did a tweet on dresses that might have gone a little bit viral and things like that. And then people start to buy in or sometimes not buy in and they end up unfollowing you, right? But they really decide, okay, I actually like Oliver Anwar's value content, but I actually like his values and views as a person. I really buy into his lifestyle or the places he travels to or all of his political stance, right? And that's when you really start building a personal brand on things. I sometimes jump on sales calls with potential clients and they would have come from a viral tweet that went viral that's nothing to do with fitness, but they've said, you know what, I really liked your take on this, or I really think this was funny or amusing. Your fitness stuff is great as well, but I enjoyed that, and they've sort of bought into me already. So I think that's really the power of personal brand, is you can get people in as clients and your lead generation could be all organic, no paid ads or anything like that, from people generally just liking you and the value you put out. And I think that's why a personal brand is so valuable.
Isn't that, did I understand correctly that that's how you connected with Andrew Tate as well?
That's true. Yeah, so have you seen my YouTube video?
I've seen the short. I didn't see the whole video, but what's the story?
Yeah, so me and Andrew followed each other on Twitter for a while, essentially, and he DM'd me on his old account that got banned to say that he was in Prague, and I was in Prague at the time as well. I posted a video, and he was like, do you fancy meeting up for a cigar and some drinks? So I was like, of course, man. So I spent like 2 hours in Prague with Andrew, smoking cigars, having a few drinks, and talking about world affairs and fitness, mindset, and lots of other stuff. And it was a really nice experience, really, because Andrew gets this reputation online that he's very abrasive, that he's very arrogant, that he's not nice, and there's tons of allegations made about him. When I met him in real life, he was super friendly, man, very personable, down to earth, like just a genuine person, right? And it's very easy to make a perception on someone based off of a 15-second TikTok, right? You never know what someone's going to be like when things are cut. It's taken out of context and things like that. But I spent over 2 hours meeting with him, having some drinks and cigars and things, and very, very personable and likable, man. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
That is so random, but I think that's one of the big things, that one of the big opportunities are the doors that having an audience online can open for you, right? Because having a certain amount of followers, I mean, I would assume that that's part of the reason why Tate followed you. That, and probably, he saw your content and I guess kind of resonated with him as well. Yeah,
for sure. I guess it's two things, right? It's social proof, like you said, the audience they see. But secondly, it's the great thing about why I love Twitter is you can talk about so many different things, right? You can talk about fitness, but you can also talk about, like I said, your political views or your views on mindset and relationships. And people may see you as like a certain guy in a niche, but then they may really like the fact that you have this certain stance, and then they buy into other parts. So you can be so dynamic with your personal brand, and you can attract lots of different types of people that like you for different reasons. And I think that's why it can be so powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting. Speaking of Tate, I think he just took it. So he obviously, he's a genius in building a personal brand, right? I think that's what he is. He, people see him as this controversial guy and so on and so forth, but I think he knows exactly what he's doing, because being controversial gives you more views, gives you more reach, right? And some people hate you, but it doesn't matter. It's like if you got thick skin, you just don't care about those people who hate you. You still get your audience, you still get your reach. And, from business perspective, it makes 100% sense, right? I mean, Trump is kind of a similar example in a way. He's just like super loud, super controversial. A lot of people hate him. He doesn't care. He gets, he gets his way. Just pretty interesting. I was just talking to Tom, who's my editor on the podcast, and we were talking. I was saying, he was saying that I really need to be more controversial, but I really struggle with that. I'm just naturally, I'm not that kind of person. And I was like, man, yeah, probably if you want to get reach, I need to do that. But
I mean, you're right though about the controversy. It's very good for business, because what happens when you're controversial is two things going to happen, right? Number one is you get a ton of hate, right? A load of people that don't agree with you get outraged online and they unfollow you, they call you nasty names and things like that. The second part is people that very much so agree with what you said but really don't want to speak up about it, really buy into you, because they're like, fuck, Oliver said that, I was thinking it but I didn't want to tweet it and he said it. Oh my God, I really agree with that, and I like that he had the balls to do that. Then that connection that they had with you has now got even deeper, because they're like, shit, I didn't know that he believed like this and he was going to say this. Fuck, I believe in this. Bang, right? And one of the craziest things is when my controversial tweets pop off, I get a ton of hate, but also off the back of that, I get the most inquiries, the most DMs for my coaching service, and my audience builds even bigger, because people really want to see these opinions, as long as you believe in them. That's another thing as well. Don't be controversial for no reason, right? And that's another thing, is you should always be genuine and integral to your views and your values. But if you say something and not everyone's going to agree with it, don't worry about the hate, because what's going to come as a second and third order is a ton of business coming your way from people that really like the fact that you think in that way.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that you, for yourself, is that something that you build over time? That kind of... I don't know, resilience, or also just the kind of persona online? Or do you think you were just naturally, you didn't mind being a little bit, sometimes controversial? Or...
That's a really good question. So I actually used to be really scared of being controversial. I used to post on my Instagram page, and I used to be scared of posting a photo with a certain caption because I was worried about what everyone thought. Like I would micro obsess over the caption, the photo, the edit. And I was so self-conscious about my online image. As you post more, right, things get a lot easier. It's like reps in the gym, right? First time you go to the gym, there's all those big guys training. It's scary, man. You don't know what to do. You're scared of fucking up. You're worried someone's going to push you out the way. You do 1,000 gym sessions, you're walking around the place like you own it, right? And it's the same with online. The more that you practice, the more you put yourself out there, kind of the more shit that you deal with, the thicker skin you get, and the easier it becomes. So I definitely wasn't natural for me, but over time I kind of built this kind of, you could say, tolerance to online hate when it came to controversial stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that was also kind of the same with me with the podcast. I remember the first 2-3 episodes that we published. I was like, oh my God, that was so embarrassing. I was like, what? Somehow, and I think it's not just for me, I think it's for most of us. Somehow it always comes back to, you think about what the high school friends are going to think.
Yeah,
I have no idea why, but it's always the fucking high school friends. It's like, oh, what is everyone going to think? I don't know. This is so awkward. But now... This is episode number 62, I think. And now it's like, I don't even think about it anymore. We just publish it. Just like the last thing on my mind is what are people going to think?
Exactly.
Which is great. And it's just it's very liberating, I guess, when you reach that point.
Hugely liberating. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So now the next step for me here is just to maybe be a bit more controversial as well. But we're going to get to that. You know who's a good example as well that I thought about when I was preparing for our podcast? Do you know who's the Liver King?
Yeah, Liver King. Yeah. He's super controversial,
That guy, he's super controversial. So for those who don't know, so there's this guy, he branded himself as the Liver King, and he usually shows up, he's like buffed, he's huge, he's like super big muscles, always topless. I think, so he was on the Diary of the CEO podcast a few weeks ago, topless. So obviously he stands out. He's got his massive beard as well, just like the manliest man. And I think he's a huge businessman as well. So I heard that he sells I think he said he has like 10 or 12 or 13 or something different businesses. I don't know what those are, but one of them is he sells supplements, right? So he's big on promoting that you should eat organ meat, liver in particular, and he eats that raw on camera sometimes. And then one of I think his biggest business is liver supplements, right? So capsules that you can eat. And that makes, I think, 100 million in revenue, which is nuts. What a character. So he came to mind when I was preparing for our podcast. So I was like, is Oliver going to show up topless? Let's see.
I mean, yeah, Liver King's a great example, man. He's one that's like puts his fork in the ground and says, I believe in this thing, and he just doesn't budge by it, right? And people either absolutely hate him or they love him, right? Yeah. And it shows in his business, man, £100 million a year business because of the brand he's built. So it works, man.
It works. It's wild. I've realized, so I want to go back a little bit, one step back to your business, because I realized I kind of half understand how it works, but half I don't. So you do everything online now, right? So you work with your clients online, and how does that relationship between you and the client look like? So what kind of things how do you work together, I suppose?
Yeah, great question. So with kind of the products that we have, the two things that we focus on are 90-day and 12-month programs. So really what we're focusing on here is working specifically with a client to achieve a specific goal with their health. So for instance, it could be fat loss, it could be muscle gain, it could be both. It could be improving sleep quality and sleep hygiene. It could be getting more energy levels, building muscle, lots of different things. So with the client that come in, we specifically work on a goal that they want to achieve over that period. So it's very much based on the things they're struggling with and the things that they want the outcome for. So for example, clients may want, to do a body transformation and they just want to lose the body fat, which is probably the majority of the clients that we work with. We'll really focus on that for 90 days. And we've got a great program that will help them drop 20 pounds of fat in 90 days, building, about 5 pounds of muscle without a restrictive diet or, without spending hours and hours in the gym. So it's specifically tailored to entrepreneurs. They're going to get access to obviously a customized training program, a nutrition plan, access to kind of a sleep dashboard where they can track and monitor their sleep, and we'll kind of give them feedback on that as well. We have weekly coaching calls as well, where me and my coaching team check in with clients. We see how they're getting on, follow up with their progress, keep them accountable and things like that, and always make adjustments to their program so they're kind of getting the results that they need. So it's very much a one-to-one process. It's all done online, remotely, through apps, through Zoom, through those kind of things. And everything that we do is based on kind of a guarantee that they'll get a specific outcome at the end of the program.
Mm-hmm. Do people usually come to you first with certain fitness goal, right? Like, because my impression, first time I came across you, my first impression was that you do fitness training, right? But now when we're talking, already I kind of got a hunch of that from your tweets, right? That it's more than that, because you talk a lot about just general healthy lifestyle and mindset and so on. But do you think people primarily find you or come with you with like fitness goals, and then you kind of expand on that?
Definitely, yeah. So I'd probably say that the entry to what we do is health and fitness, right? Because they probably see my profile picture, right? Shirtless guy with his top off, tweeting about fitness stuff. Yeah, right. And they straight away are attracted to that part. But then what they see is I tweet about lots of different things, right? So it's not just about your diet and your training. There's more stuff about kind of sleep hygiene and sleep quality, how you manage your lifestyle, mobility, recovery, mindset, right? Mental health, all of these kinds of things. So a lot of this stuff is included in the program, and I specifically wanted a program that was holistic, right? That focuses on lots of different things, because if you just have a good diet and you just have good training, but your sleep is shit, you're still not going to perform at the best, right? And as an entrepreneur, you obviously want to look good, you want to be leaner, you want to be stronger, and obviously performance will improve with that, but you want to perform well overall and holistically in your life. You don't just want to look good. You want to be able to produce more money with your business. You want to have a great relationship with your partner. You want to have a great social life and vitality and energy for those things as well. And you need more than just kind of your diet and training to get you there, if that makes sense. So building out kind of this holistic program is great, and we focus really on 4 key pillars. We focus on nutrition, we focus on training, we focus on recovery, and then we focus on lifestyle. So all of these 4 areas are really what I think will help you look great, feel great, and be great. Okay, if you can hit those 4 pillars and achieve excellence in all of those, you will look great, you will feel great, you'll be great, and you'll be able to be at your best each day. And I believe that that is really the key to entrepreneurs unlocking their potential.
Nice. Okay, so this is now the subject that is absolutely your expertise, and I know that a lot of the audience also really likes this, because I think I said that in one of the last episodes already. But I think the most downloaded episode ever was when we talked a lot about performance. It was less focused on health and fitness, but I talked to somebody who was a very successful entrepreneur, and he talked a lot about just how he maintains his peak performance, basically, to perform well as an entrepreneur, as well as to help his team perform well, right? So let's talk more about this, because I think it's interesting. You mentioned the 4 pillars. Can you talk a little bit more about each one of those? I think that's an interesting starting point.
Yeah, definitely. So let's start and begin with nutrition. So let's talk about that. So nutrition for especially entrepreneurs wants to be focused for primarily, a lot of them is around fat loss. So they want to lose fat, right, so they can get leaner and drop the body fat to look good. Now, with that, there's going to be a ton of benefits. They're going to have more focus, they're going to have more energy levels, they're going to have more vitality each day from generally having less body fat, right? Because our body, with body fat, it's like excess weight that our body doesn't need. So straight away, that's going to see a benefit. Now, with a nutrition plan specifically for entrepreneurs as well, we want to ensure that this is not restrictive, because when a diet is restrictive for an entrepreneur that's very busy, they're just not going to be able to stick to it. If you have client dinners, you're going out to dinner, right? You're going to restaurants. You want to find a way that you can kind of incorporate a diet that's going to allow you to do those things. Otherwise, it's too rigid, right? You go out and you completely blow the diet, and that's just not going to be sustainable. So the one thing we focus on is sustainability with the diet and making it as flexible as possible. So allowing clients to have meals out, but really giving them an understanding of how much protein they need to eat, which is going to help with muscle gain. It's going to help with building strength. It's going to help with ensuring that they're full throughout the course of their day. And then the amount of calories they need to eat. So calories are king when it comes to fat loss and just kind of regulating our body's energy needs. If we are in too much of a surplus of calories, we're just going to be very fatigued. We're going to be really tired. If we have too little calories, what's going to happen is we're going to be starved and we're not going to sleep well, and our body's just not going to function properly. So getting these 2 things to begin with are very important, ensuring we have the right amount of calories and protein for success in a flexible way. So that's kind of how we approach the nutrition side of things.
All right. Let's just go to the next pillar. I think I'll have some sub-questions, but maybe at the end.
Yeah, for sure. So the second pillar that we focus on is training. So this is where we want to focus on our clients building as much muscle as possible. Now, this isn't just because we want them to be meatheads that are bodybuilders, but we primarily focus on weight training because it gives you longevity. People that have more muscle, they live longer. Right, they get sick less, they have less chance of diseases and sickness and injuries, they have less likelihood of breaking bones, they have more general self-confidence, higher testosterone levels, better focus, and improved posture. So there are countless benefits to having more muscle. And as an entrepreneur, you want to build as much muscle as possible because it makes you resilient. And I always say that having muscle is like having an elastic band that is strong. When you don't have muscle, you're a weak elastic band. You can be pulled apart really easily, right? When you're skinny, you're quite flimsy. Not just from a physical standpoint, but internally as well. You're going to get sicker a lot quicker, right? You're going to get injured a lot quicker if you fall because you don't have muscle that's going to kind of break your bones, okay? And there's going to be not much support there when you fall over. Thirdly, as well, you're just not going to have as much energy when you don't have as much muscle, okay? So all of these things, they make you quite flimsy. Now, when you are building more muscle and you're stronger, you're going to, like I said, have less chance of getting sick. You're not going to have as many sick days. You're going to sleep a lot better. This makes you a very robust rubber band. When a lot of life, like stress that happens a lot as entrepreneurs comes your way, illnesses such as, the things that's happened over the past 2 years comes your way, you're going to be much more healthy if you've got more muscle on your frame. And this is shown in a lot of the research. So we really want to build as much muscle as possible through weight training and also do it in a minimal amount of time. So with my program, you can do it in kind of 1 to 3 hours a week in the gym. So the workouts are short, they're quick, they're intense, but they're really focused on full body. They're focused on training multiple muscle groups at once and trying to progressively get stronger on the main movements. If you can do that, you're going to get the most bang for your buck for muscle groups trained per exercise. and you're also going to be able to build more muscle in less time, which is going to help you with all of those benefits that I spoke about earlier. So that's a little bit around the training. We, of course, also focus on cardio, which is great for health and that kind of stuff. But predominantly, we're focused on building muscle and strength because that's what's going to give you health and longevity going forward.
Sitting. We sit a lot. A lot of us, modern lifestyle is just, in front of a laptop, and most of the entrepreneurs, that's how they spend a lot of time. What's the best thing to do about that?
Great question. So one of the most important parts of our body to train, and one of the most undertrained parts of our body, are glutes. And when we're sat down for 12 hours a day, our glutes are so inactive, and it actually negates a lot of the performance that we have because we're sat on them. The muscle is super underperformed. So when we go to do certain movements, even the basic ones like squat down, we can start to feel pains and we don't engage the muscles properly. So one of the first things I always recommend my entrepreneur clients to do is to get a standing desk. Okay. If you're, sitting for 12 hours a day, maybe make that half, right? 6, and stand for the other 6. Number one, that's going to improve your posture. It's going to activate your glutes a little bit more, and it's also going to increase calorie burn as well. Finally, it's actually going to improve energy levels and focus. When you're stood up, right, you're going to project your voice a lot better. When you're presenting on Zoom calls, you're speaking to your employees, you're going to come across a lot better when you stood up, which can be a great benefit. I also try and get my clients to do regular walks. So we average around 8 to 10,000 steps a day for each client. The reason being is it helps relieve stress. If you can go out and get sunlight, that's going to improve your energy levels, help you get better sleep in the evening too. It's going to improve your posture as well. When you're stood up like this for a greater portion of the day, it's going to improve your shoulder positioning. It's going to allow you to stand more upright, which is going to just be a lot much better for your overall body. So I would kind of give those tips definitely for entrepreneurs. I always say walk-in meetings are great. So if you've got your phone and you need to do Zoom calls, right, go out in the park and do a 30 to 60 minute walk-in meeting. Those can be really, really useful. That's one very direct thing that I took away from just reading your tweets. I was like, oh man, I really need to start walking more, and I started doing more walking meetings. And I had actually the first time I did it was not the first ever walking meeting, but now recently I had a call with my mom on the weekend, and she called me, and we usually talk on Skype because she lives in a different country, right? So I was like, hey, do you mind if I just go for a walk? And she was like, is everything okay? And like, why do you need to talk about something? As in, why are you going for a walk? I was like, no, I just need to start walking more. So it's good.
Walking meetings, yeah.
Yeah, walking meetings can be great as well. And then when it comes to specifically training, is focusing on a lot of posterior chain work. So what that means is essentially they're focusing on the back of your body, because as people, we generally seem to focus on training the front of our body a lot. So we tend to like to do a lot of bench press, right? We like to do a lot of bicep curls. We like to do a lot of quad extensions, because like what we can see in the mirror is our front, right? We rarely see the back. And the back, it's not just to look good for the back, but it has a lot of importance with general movement if we have a strong posterior chain. So it's going to allow us to kind of sit a lot better. It's going to improve our posture to sit more upright. So focusing on things such as like Romanian deadlifts can be great. Pull-ups are good. Hamstring curls and dead hangs, which is essentially a dead hang is just hanging from a bar like this and just kind of stretching out your body. That's going to be great for the posterior chain. It's also going to help with improving your posture for when you sit, when you walk, and things like that. So we do a lot of posterior chain work with our clients on the program, because we want to ensure that the back is just as strong, if not stronger, than the front.
Got it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Posture, yeah, posture is a big one. I'm pretty tall, and everything is low for me, and it's always, I don't have back problems yet, but I'm just being very conscious about it. I'm like, man, gotta be careful about that.
Another thing is get a good desk chair. A desk chair is very important. So I tell my clients to invest in a good desk chair, because if you're going to be sat for 6-12 hours a day, a desk chair is really key. One that's actually going to adjust to support your height and your body shape and things like that. Ones with a neck rest can be great as well. There's so many good ones out there now, the ergonomic chairs. So I'd highly recommend that for entrepreneurs as well.
I got Iron recently. Is that a good one?
That's a good brand. Yeah.
I mean, they're expensive as hell, but when all the research that I've done, all the research or the articles that seemed legitimate were recommending Iron. So I just said, look, the price is worth it.
Definitely, man, for sure.
Okay, cool. So then we got two more pillars, right? Then you had lifestyle and recovery.
Yeah, sure. So let's dive into recovery. So recovery here is really focused mainly predominantly around sleep optimization. So sleep is huge, right? You can miss a workout, right? No biggie. You can skip a meal, no problem. You have a bad night's sleep, your whole day will be ruined, right? Like you probably know this from experience. I've been like that as well. So sleep, people say, right, is what's more important? Is it training or is it your diet? Neither of those are important. The most important is your sleep. Because if you sleep shit, your training is going to be terrible, and also you're not going to want to eat healthy food. You're going to have cravings and all of that kind of stuff. So sleep is vital, and especially as an entrepreneur, it's going to be the key to your energy levels, your output, testosterone levels, drive, focus, mood, all of these things. If you're leading the team, you need to be at your best. And if you're not sleeping enough, you're not going to come across in the right way. You're not going to have the energy and vitality to lead a company, right? So it's one of those things that I think was said a lot by people like Gary Vee back in the day. You know, I'll sleep when I'm dead, hustle 24/7. It's kind of a toxic mentality when it comes to work. You know, if you can, work 12-hour days but still try and squeeze in a little bit more sleep, you're going to be much more productive on those hours that you're working, and you might even be able to cut down that 12 hours of work to 10 hours because you're faster, you're more efficient, you're making better decisions from those hours that you're working, right? So we focus a lot of sleep in the program that we have. So sleep supplementation, we also focus on consistent sleep and wake times and how to achieve those, a good sleep routine and things like that, and actually monitoring sleep with data to see how, if we change these variables, your sleep improves. So
what do you use to monitor it?
So one of the favorite devices that I have is the Aura Ring, which you can see here. Yeah, the Aura Ring. So we get all of our clients wearing one of these, which are great. And this essentially helps monitor and track sleep and recovery predominantly. So your sleep score will be kind of how well you sleep, and your recovery is how well recovered you are the next day. Now, if you're scoring high on these, then great. It means that you're sleeping good, you're sleeping deep, and that you're kind of ready to train and perform the next day.
Nice. Okay, because I've heard mixed. I just wasn't sure how reliable it is, basically, Aura Rings, because I know that wearables in the beginning, they were very, the data that was coming in was just not very reliable, and then sleep especially was supposed to be quite difficult to measure, but I'm not an expert, right? I don't really know much about those subjects.
Yeah, it's a good question. So unless you're kind of getting connected up to like a sleep machine or a sleep monitor, right, that would be at your bed that's very accurate, or in a hospital, you're not going to get that accuracy with a smart device, right? Being completely honest, it's not going to happen. But when you look at all the smart devices, Oura Ring is probably one of the most accurate when it comes to the metrics and the data. There is going to sometimes be a discrepancy. Some nights it's not going to track your sleep accurately, right? So some nights I'll sleep really well and it will give me a shit score, and I'm like, how's that happened? Sometimes it reads the data wrong because it can move around on your finger. It's not super accurate compared to a sleep device. But when you look at the overall smart devices, Oura Ring is definitely number one. Secondly would be a Whoop band. Whoop are quite good, but I would say that the data is not as accurate as the Oura Ring. I actually did a YouTube video comparing both as well, which is really useful to see. So if you just search Oliver Anwar, Oura Ring versus Whoop, I do a whole review and things of the devices. But I would say definitely the Oura Ring is number one for the smart devices. But just be aware that sometimes they'll give you potentially an inaccurate read in some days if there is like movement on the finger and things like that.
Got it. Okay. Sounds like it's time to invest into an Oura Ring.
Do it, man.
And then the fourth pillar was lifestyle, right?
Yeah, lifestyle. So the final pillar we focus on is lifestyle. So this really is focused on how do we manage and, you could say, deal with the challenges that come an entrepreneur's way. So very stressful work periods, traveling domestically or internationally with work and to meet clients, alcohol, emotional eating, all of these kinds of things that come with a lifestyle that you lead as an entrepreneur is what we cover. So what we're trying to do here is help you build a healthy relationship with these certain things, right? With travel, with enjoying yourself, with eating out, with alcohol and things like that. There's a lot of coaches out there that will kind of tell you to abstain from all of these things and never do any of that. I don't believe in that. I think that there's a time and a place to enjoy some drinks out, to enjoy, celebrating for, whether it's having a baby or, getting a round of investment. Like there's a time to celebrate and let loose and enjoy yourself. But for a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of these vices come with levels of stress, right? So you're very, very stressed, you drink lots and lots of alcohol. That ruins your sleep. It kind of takes away from your training, and it's going to help you, it's going to cause you to eat lots and lots of calories or consume a lot more calories while you're there. So what we try and focus on is ensuring that we're doing this in the right doses. How do we incorporate the right amount of alcohol within our month or in our week that doesn't, hinder the rest of the things that are going to impact performance? So again, it's about putting strategies in place to help people manage with that. Drink choice, ensuring that we're eating the right foods before and after we're kind of drinking and things like that. Scheduling in rest days and things like that, and having rest periods if we are having a big blowout with alcohol and things like that. So that's kind of the lifestyle piece, and kind of helping clients understand that they can still work out, in their hotel room if they need to, and modifying their workout plans to do that kind of thing. And then eat out at restaurants too, which is a big one. So making healthy, intuitive choices when you can't cook from home. So, ensuring that there's good amounts of protein in your food, right, and in your meal, ensuring that we're avoiding any kind of unhealthy sources when necessary if we're trying to drop body fat, ensuring that we're maybe going for the slimline gin and tonic instead of the bottle of wine, right, when we're trying to lose fat while still drinking alcohol. So a lot of these little tips and tricks that will kind of help you still do the things that you need to do, but still also get the results when it comes to fat loss, performance, and maintaining a healthy lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Lifestyle is an interesting one. So I read the book called Sapiens. Do you know Sapiens?
Great book. Yeah, I've read that.
Man, that book changed my life, because ever since I read that, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago, I just started looking at everything through a different lens. Like how did we used to do things 10,000 years ago, or 50,000 years ago, or maybe 100,000 years ago? And it just made me, now I just often think about how the modern lifestyle is just so completely different for how we were naturally meant to live, right? Or how our body are used to living and existing in this world. And I really, very often, that's just how I try to reason in terms of what's a good thing, or what's a healthy thing and what's not a healthy thing. Obviously, it's extremely hard because we live in a modern world, and we're not in Stone Age anymore, and life demands very, very different things from you, from your mind, and from your body today, right? But I try to generally, I suppose when possible, or at least I try to think about what would be the most natural thing to do, or thing to eat, or the most natural kind of lifestyle that I can have. And again, it's kind of hard, but I feel like that's a healthy way to think about lifestyle choices.
100%. It's what a lot of our kind of, you could say, ancestors did. Walking a lot in sun, right? Getting as many steps in as possible, eating whole foods, which is really important, that came from the ground, kind of like the paleo diet is something I'm a big fan of. Eating meat as well. Meat is great and healthy for you. A lot of people are disputing that now. Animal food is good. All of these things that kind of you would see in the olden times generally are quite good for you right now, that you can see. There wasn't McDonald's back then, there wasn't Uber Eats, right? There wasn't all this bullshit. So I guess that maybe we shouldn't be eating as much of this stuff as the whole healthy foods that we were consuming years and years ago, right? So it can be a good rule of thumb. Of course, as well, we need to understand that we're not Neanderthals either. So we actually have different levels of stress to, people back then, right? An entrepreneur that's working 16 hours a day has a different stress tolerance to a Neanderthal that's living in a cave, right? Like, they're two different people. So while we should take what kind of they're doing as a, good rule of thumb, it doesn't always mean we should be doing everything that they're doing, right? So for example, like a Neanderthal back in the day might be doing a 24-hour fast because they're hunter-gatherers and they don't have any food. Maybe for an entrepreneur that's super stressed out and has like 3 or 4 intense meetings in the morning, has to work out and then has to go home to see their family, maybe a 24-hour fast is not a good idea for them. So there's nuance with this stuff as well, right? And that's a lot of the stuff that we break down with clients, is saying, okay, take this stuff from what you would do in the olden times, but maybe not take this part, right? And try and find and navigate the best way to approach it for the life that we're living right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, so that's cool. So that's interesting. Do you have any other similar example? Because it's actually really cool that you mentioned that. Like, what are actually the differences, or what are those nuances? Because I was always hoping that somebody will. I think right after I read the book, I became a little bit too obsessed. I was like, man, everything just needs. We should have just stayed in the Stone Age, basically, right? Like, why did we even evolve? Like, this is bullshit. This is wrong. But part of it was also, or to some extent, I also realized, like, well, but we did evolve to some extent, and probably some things are definitely better today than they are. A lot of things are better today than they were back then. But I never really found anyone to kind of challenge me on that, to say, look, yeah, okay, but here are the things that you should be doing today. Do you know where I'm getting with this?
Yeah, kind of. I kind of get what you mean. Do you want to be? Could you be bit more specific?
Yeah. So, is there anything else that is sort of modern, that is more common in modern lifestyle? It's a weird question to ask. Something that you definitely shouldn't be doing in a more ancestral way or Stone Age kind of way. I don't know if I can ask a better question, or if I can phrase a question in a better way.
Yeah. I would probably say the fasting example that I gave is a good one. I definitely think that, if you're an entrepreneur that's working 12, 16 hours a day, you need food to fuel you, and you shouldn't be running off your adrenal hormones. So what happens when we fast is we run off something called our adrenal hormones or adrenal glands, right? It's our fight and flight response. So, if someone tries to jump at us in the street with a knife, right, we're either going to have the fight or flight response there. The adrenaline is either going to cause us to fight, right, or it's going to cause us to run away, which is probably better. The latter example is to run away from someone with a knife, right? You shouldn't be fighting them. But that adrenal gland is used for those specific fight or flight kind of moments, right, when we need them the most. Now, when we fast, what happens is, because we don't have energy coming from food and through our body, it's coming from our adrenal gland. So we're literally running off of flight or flight hormones. So as an entrepreneur, you already have a lot of stress in your life, and your adrenals are usually a little bit elevated because, you're having to put out fires in the business. You're working 16-hour days. You don't know what's going to come up. Like, stress is generally higher for an entrepreneur than it is for, a guy that's just got a general chilled, relaxed job. So if you're then coupling the stress you have as an entrepreneur with fasting for 24 hours, your adrenal hormones, after a while, they're going to be completely fucked because your stress is going to be through the roof. So what we want to do is ensure that we're getting enough food throughout the course of the day, so we're getting energy from food and not energy from our adrenal stress hormone that is supposed to be there for the fight or flight, if that makes sense. So that's the big reason as to why we should be kind of eating consistently as an entrepreneur throughout the day. So we kind of save that kind of adrenal stress for when we need it.
That makes sense. So stress is an interesting one. Burnout comes up quite often as a subject in my episodes because I had many guests who had experience with burnout, right? Because it's a very real thing that happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. And I always, I suppose my reasoning about burnout is always, if I take care of the baseline of the fundamentals, which is a lot of the things that we talked about today, right? Healthy nutrition, working out, sleeping. Maybe one thing that we didn't talk about so much is just, I suppose, mental well-being. Or if I take care of those things, I probably have lower chances of getting a burnout. But I think you probably have much more experience in this field. What are your thoughts about it, or what's the best way to sort of prevent or decrease your chances as an entrepreneur, somebody who's busy, who has a lot of stress? What are the best things you can do to prevent burnout?
It's a really good question. So I think that, like you said, and I definitely agree, having a baseline and a good foundation of eating just healthy whole foods, trying to get a little bit more sleep, exercising regularly is going to be great for just generally being able to deal with stress. You're going to be a lot more resilient. Like I spoke about earlier about this resilience, right? Like the rubber band, you're going to be a much stronger and more robust rubber band when you've got this strong foundation of, a little bit more muscle, not that much body fat, sleeping well and things like that. You're going to be able to cope with things. From a mental point of view, you want to ensure that you're giving yourself as much as you can, some kind of regular reset that's allowing your mind to just have a break, man. So, like I mentioned in the morning, like not using your phone first thing in the morning and just going out for 10, 20-minute walk in the morning, right, is going to be so good for you to collate your thoughts and understand what you need to do before you go and tackle the 12-hour problems that you've got to deal with for the rest of the day. That's going to be huge for your mental state. Also, your perception of the stress that itself, right? You can use stress as a positive thing. You can say, right, this stress is good because it's getting me to X goal, right? It's going to help me achieve this with my business, or it's going to help me hire this new person, or it's going to help me give me the freedom to do X. If you can perceive that in like a positive light and in the right way, you know that you're working towards something. There's nothing worse than working a 12-hour day knowing that you're working towards something that you don't care about, or not even knowing the end goal, right? That it's just a repeated thing that you're going to do with no end in mind. That's how people get depressed. So having that kind of focus and goal and perceiving that in the right light is going to be good. And another thing that not a lot of people talk about that's huge is your relationships, right? When you're an entrepreneur working 12 hours a day and you're working towards some goals, but you potentially don't have good relationships with your friends or good intimate relationships. And I think that's a big one, is a lot of entrepreneurs can be lonely, right? They don't have an intimate relationship because they're putting everything into their business. That makes you feel shit, right? You come home from giving all day to you know what you love to do, and you just don't feel a connection with somebody, or your relationship with someone is terrible. Man, that's going to make you feel really, really bad. So one of the most underrated things is ensuring that, and sounds really cheesy, it's kind of health, right? Wealth, but that final part, relationships, making sure that you have good, healthy relationships with friends and intimate people that are in your life, man. Like, that's so important. And I know from personal experience that makes a big difference too. So that's kind of how I would kind of discuss and kind of give my thoughts on kind of burnout.
That's perfect. You know what I realized now when you were talking? Whoever I have on the podcast, anyone who's big on creating content online, you guys just become better at talking about stuff. I think you just, I think my hypothesis is that you, because you produce so much content online, you put a lot of thoughts into maybe how to communicate well, but also just the things, all the thoughts that you have, the knowledge that you have, how to communicate it well, how to articulate it well. And I realized that whenever I have somebody who has a massive following on Twitter, which means you need to be good at producing all those tweets, you're just good at expressing your thoughts into something that's understandable and easy to digest and packed with value. So there's some
really?
positive
Thank you, man.
feedback
I really
for you, I guess.
But I can see that with other creators as well that I've spoken to that have a big audience. You're right, because you're putting all your thoughts down each day and you're trying to like dissect it in the right way and communicating it. So when you speak it, it's going to be a lot clearer and it's going to resonate a lot more with the audience. Yeah. I can kind of see where you're coming from, for sure.
It legitimately gives me more motivation to produce more content online, because I was always quite obsessed with communication. I just think it's great if you're a good communicator. It's just useful in all aspects of life. And I really see this pattern now that when you produce more content online, you just become better at communicating in general. Also, in conversations, on camera, whatever it might be. So that's a lesson there.
Thanks, man.
Cool. I've got a few more kind of rapid fire questions if you've got a few more minutes.
Sure.
So this is a new sort of section that we're going to try for the first time today, and we'll see how it's going to go. I'm thinking we might get some interesting content out of this that we can probably clip for some short clips on YouTube or TikTok.
Nice.
We'll see what we get out of it. If you're 20 years old again, or 18 or whatever, and you want to start a business, how do you approach it? What do you do?
So if I was 18 or 20 years old and I wanted to start a business again, I wouldn't go to university. I would get as much experience as I could working in a company in my earlier years. Building a skill set of learning sales, I think, is so vital. Being able to communicate well, and generally just having discipline and drive to do certain things. Now with that's going to give you a great foundation to move on to other things, whether that's a senior position or whether it comes to running your own business. Because if you can communicate well, you can sell well, you're going to be able to be good at business, right? You're going to be able to have some kind of success in the future when it comes to that. So I would definitely focus on that, because the 4 years that I spent at university learning a business degree would have been much better placed doing 4 years of sales in a company, or 4 years of really building a skill each day and learning. I even think that you should even start a business at a young age as well, at a younger age, because you're going to try, you're going to fail, and you're going to learn, right? And you become resilient, and you're going to learn through trial and error, which, is a much quicker way to learn than just reading a book. I think it was somebody that tweeted this recently. They were like, I learned more from my one embarrassing startup than I did from reading 20 books, because there's no substitute from being in the arena and trying stuff. So I would definitely say build skill sets through a company, and then secondly, start and learn and fail as quickly as possible.
Yeah. You reminded me, I would almost sort of give myself a £100 scholarship and say, I'm going to take from like whatever I have, whatever's my income, whether it's pocket money, whether I have like a job on the side or whatever, I'll take £100 and I have to spend those £100 every month on my business, because I think it's so valuable. I myself, when I was younger, I just didn't want to spend any money. I would try things, but I didn't spend any money on it. And things just cost a little bit. I mean, if nothing else, maybe you need to, hire a freelancer to help you with something, or you want to spend some money on ads or like whatever, right? You need the server to set up a website or like whatever, right? So I think that's a small amount of money that just so worth it. It's going to pay off 8,000 times.
100%.
All right, next question. What's your number one book or course or person or experience, something that you would say that had the biggest impact on your career and maybe life?
Does it have to be a business book?
No, it doesn't have to be.
Okay, so one of the great books that I liked reading, and probably number one, is The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've read it, yeah.
So, yeah, you read it, yeah. So it's not a business book. It's not really even a self-improvement. It's a masculinity book, right? About you as a man and kind of how you should deal with not just relationships with women, but like how you should lead yourself. What I really enjoyed about that book is like the first half of the book is fantastic. It's gold, and you should read it like over and over again. The second half for me, it's a bit kind of like woo-woo and a bit wishy-washy, right? I'm kind of like, whoa, this is a bit wild for me, but still value, not gonna lie. But it's kind of more to do with kind of like interpersonal dynamics within relationships and things like that. What I really like is the first part about, really being on your mission, living on your edge, having purpose, taking risks, right? Being accountable, responsible for yourself. Like, I think that's such a great message to founders, of course, but also just generally men in general. I think that's great and a timeless book. So once I've read that and I really kind of resonated with the first part, that really changed a lot of the way in which I did things, the risks that I took, the way that I kind of conducted myself and things like that.
100% agree. I think having that mission in life, you're just not lost anymore. You're like chasing something, and you're like motivated. There's a quote that I really like. I think it's by Viktor Frankl, and he says, I'm not going to remember how exactly it goes, but he says, men who don't have a mission, they chase pleasure or something like that. And I think there's some truth to that, because if you don't, if you have a strong mission, then you're on your journey, right? And you're like chasing that goal. If you don't have that goal, then you try to, I don't know, just distract yourself with stuff. And I thought that's
very true.
Yeah. Another question. I think maybe we sort of covered that to an extent, but I'm curious if you're going to answer this differently. What's your strategy for continuously improving yourself?
That's a great question. What's the strategy for doing that? I think a lot of it, and the most important thing, is really around curiosity and leaning into what you're good at, right? So there are certain things that you're going to be good at and things that you're also going to be curious about that you want to know. And when you see either of those things, you really want to lean into those, right? So if you're very good with people and psychology and you're more EQ, you really want to go into that a lot further and be like, how can I get even better at that and make this like one of my key strengths and be a master of people or sales or psychology or whatever that is. It may also be that you're so curious about a certain thing, right? It may be that you're really curious about, I don't know, AI, right? It could be that you're just really interested in that topic. Deep dive into that and learn as much as you can about it, because those two things, like curiosity and liking something and also being very good at something and competent, are going to drive you to want to learn more and be have depth in it. There's nothing worse than being really shit at something and not liking something. You know, when you're at school and you're really shit at something, you don't want to do it. If there's something you don't like, you're not going to fucking do it, right? So curiosity and enjoying something and liking it, and also being competent at something, are the two ways to continue learning, because you really want to go all in on those things. And at the end of the day, that's going to compound, and you're going to become like either a master or an expert in one of those things, because you're going to have both the desire and like the skill to kind of push it forward, if that makes sense.
Nice. Very cool. Oliver, I think we're going to wrap up at this point. That was a great conversation. I certainly took a lot of lessons out of it. And yeah, we're going to link to your profiles, to your YouTube and Twitter. Go follow Oliver on Twitter. As I've said over and over again, he's got great content, so it's super valuable. And yeah, man, thanks a lot for coming on. This was great.
I appreciate you, bro. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening until the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like the content, please do me a favor and click the like button on YouTube, or give us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts. Leave a comment, subscribe if you want to hear more from us. That really helps also to get the podcast out there, and that helps me get more interesting guests and create even more interesting content. So I really appreciate if you do that. If you have any other comments, questions, feel free to message me. You can find me on Twitter. That's usually the best channel. The link should be somewhere in the description. And yeah, check out my Twitter. I try to tweet interesting stuff about similar content that we talk about on the podcast, key insights from the podcast as well, and just generally stuff that I learn and stuff that I do. So see you. Thanks.